Nasrallah gave a speech today, a very important speech, and he did this on the anniversary of Mustafa Badruddin, his 8th martyrdom anniversary. So basically the 8th anniversary of when he was martyred in battle. He was someone in Hezbollah. And now there were several topics that he touched on, and they were live translating this on a bunch of channels, on Sky News, on Press TV, and so on. And I watched it, and I've got all the points for you. Okay, so just to kind of gloss through it, the Palestinian cause. Okay, where is the Palestinian cause right now? Because as you know, Hezbollah are busy fighting this war just as much as Hamas are fighting this war, right? The Lebanese front is just as important as Gaza or the West Bank or Yemen. Now, the thing is that the Palestinian cause is now at the forefront, right? Because you have people who want to debate about the Palestinian cause and say, well, it didn't really achieve anything. You've got all these dead people now in Gaza. You've got all these people that are suffering. And yeah, of course, you can look at it that way. But the thing is that you have the Palestinian cause at the forefront of world politics. So if we look at the Palestinian cause in September of 2023, I mean, it was a done deal, right? It was almost game over. You had normalization that was going ahead. Remember, there's that Fox News interview with Mohammed bin Salman with Saudi Arabia, and they were just openly saying, yeah, we're going to normalize ties with Israel. And that's one of the main reasons for October 7. A lot of people don't understand this and never talk about it. If you go watch the mini-series, the documentary mini-series that I made, it's called The Hidden Reasons Behind the War on Gaza, you will understand that that Netanyahu speech at the UN and the normalization was one of the main reasons for October 7th. And so Hamas wanted to break that, and they succeeded. Now everybody is talking about Palestine, right? The whole world wants a country, a nation for the Palestinians. Just last week you had the UN General Assembly vote, and compare that to when the partition plan was passed, where you had 38 countries in the UN. Now you have most countries, and most countries agree they want a Palestinian nation, right? So these are the points that he was making. And if you look at also Israel's image is cooked. It's done, right? There's no, no one believes that the Israelis are peace-loving. No one believes that the Israelis have good intentions anymore. And so if you look at also the behavior of the Israeli ambassador at the UN, which we'll watch again in a second, he shows up, and this is every time, right? He shows up to the UN. He's arrogant, extremely vile in his language. He just starts shouting at everybody in the room, and you can see he's very angry about Sinwar. He even brought the poster. Again, we'll look at it, and the shredder. So Israel's image, the ambassador's image, all of it, it's just gone down the drain, down the toilet. And the Israelis have been exposed as people who don't respect human rights. They don't respect international law. The United States as well. If you look at the student protests have shown us that the youth stand behind the Palestinian cause, that most people stand behind the Palestinian cause, and that the US is not a place for democracy, right? So the Israeli image is tattered, the US image is tattered, or rather in tatters, and so that's it's over for them. Whereas the Palestinian cause has now been elevated to the number one issue in world politics. There was also a mention of the Syrian president Bashar al-Assad of his meeting. So the point was that if you look at what's happening in Syria and what the president there said, he said that the Palestinian question, as long as it's unresolved, Syria is not going to move, a hairbreadth's width away from that. Okay, so Syria is always going to back the Palestinian cause. Remember, Palestine was part of Greater Syria until barely 100 years ago. Always was. So they're inextricable, right? They are inextricably intertwined, the Syrian and Palestinian goals, and so that's another indication of how the region is going. Most Arabs in the region do not support the Israelis; they support the Palestinians. And even those that were going to normalize, they haven't normalized because Hamas's plan worked. And those that are on Gaza's side, on Palestine's side, have reinforced and strengthened their resolve. Okay. Now you look at the United States. This is what Nasrallah was going on to say. He was saying that the United States have given Israel all of these weapons. intelligence. They've given them access to their satellites. What has that accomplished? Nothing. The Israelis are weak. The Israelis, this image of the Israelis being the strongest army in the region it's a joke. It's a joke. And this idea that the United States are the strongest army in the world, it's a joke. Because both of them together, they've been fighting what they called like a small resistance for 8 months. And they can't win. Right? In front of the simplest guerrilla force. Right? I'm exaggerating a bit. They're not simple, but these two big armies in front of Hamas, what have they achieved? Nothing. They're failing. And so Nasrallah, he goes on to call the Israelis or Israel, a failed state. Militarily, it's a failed state. In every other way, it's a failed state, right? This is the country that promised Jewish people security. Where's the security, right? Where's all the honey and milk? Huh? So it turns out that at the first sign of trouble, they all run away, right? They all run away. And so Nasrallah relates that to the Northern Front because, as I said, the Lebanese front is very important for the Gaza war. So it's South Lebanon, but it's Northern Palestine, right? And that's what I mean by the Northern Front. It's north if you're looking at it from the Palestinian point of view. Now, he relates it to that because you have 300,000 Israelis that have been evacuated from there. The Israelis will tell you it's 80,000. They'll lie about the figures. They always lie. Okay, it's normal for one side to maximize its losses and maximize its gains and minimize its losses. But still, there's a big discrepancy between 80,000 and 300,000. It's near 300,000. So these are Israeli settlers that the government have put in buses and ferried away to hotels. And now all of these houses are empty in the north. So you got all these Israeli settlers that moved to Palestine thinking, it's going to be honey and milk and it's going to be great. And they're just going to get away with stealing land. And no, well, they're not going to come back now, are they? Right? There's this question now of where are these Israelis going to stay? Are they going to stay in other parts of quote unquote Israel? Are they going to stay outside because you have 500,000 of them have left? And so Nasrallah is saying this very simply. If you want peace and you want to go back to your homes in the north of Palestine, and you want to put your kids back in school before the 1st of September when the next term starts, well, you better go and lobby your government, Netanyahu. You better go and lobby your government for a ceasefire in Gaza. So, this is not going to stop until there's a ceasefire in Gaza. And so the Israelis are losing. They're losing with EU support. They're losing with US support. The Israelis want victory, but they just can't get there. They just can't find a way. And the ceasefire proposal was also something very illuminating because the Israelis and Americans were trying to shame Hamas and say, look, they won't accept it. And then Hamas blindsided them and caught their bluff, right? Called their bluff. And so they came in and said, no, we're fine with it. Let's do it. And then the Israelis and Americans are nowhere to be found. They've suddenly disappeared, right? To this day, where are they? What happened to the ceasefire? It was the number one news topic, the number one news item. And then as soon as Hamas say we want it, so the Israelis have two choices now. They can continue the war. This is the point Nasrallah is making. They can continue the war, even though it's bleeding them, it's destroying their image, it's wearing them down, or they can go for a ceasefire. But there's nothing in between. There will be no victory here. Okay? And don't be misled about the US withholding some crates of ammunition or some shipments, arms shipments, because it's a smokescreen. It's nothing but an act. Okay, of course the US is supporting Israel. Of course they are. Don't be fooled by that. That's another point that he raises. When Hamas agreed to the ceasefire, it really exposed the US and Israel because not only are they nowhere to be found, but their image is like the whole world is looking at them and saying, well, you obviously don't care about the hostages. Otherwise, you would have agreed to the ceasefire, which you kept nagging Hamas about. And you obviously don't care about human rights because we can see what you're doing in Gaza and you don't care to fix that through the ceasefire. Another point that Nasrallah makes is that even if Hamas are defeated, you will have other factions that will just rise up in their place, or rather take their place. Because remember, you have the PFLP, you have PIJ, you have lots of factions in Gaza. People just don't know that. They think it's only Hamas. But make no mistake, I said this myself also, that if the Israelis think they can defeat Hamas, well, go ahead. But you'll have an even stronger group that will that will come in their stead, right? And they will make the current humiliation of the IDF look like a joke. And then, of course, Nasrallah pivots and he talks about the Syrian refugees. You know, there are tons of Syrian refugees in Lebanon because of the war. And he just made a point here about, you know, if because you have some people who complain, which is ridiculous, because like Palestine, Lebanon was part of Greater Syria, so it's the same country really. But that, you know, you have some figures who are usually the ones siding with Israel. Remember, you have collaborators in Lebanon, right? So he's talking to them, and he kind of makes the point that, you know, if you want the Syrians to return home, well, then get rid of the Caesar sanctions, because those were implemented by the United States, by Trump. Biden has kept them, and of course, who's behind it? It's the Israelis. These are the main points that he made during the speech, and there you have it. Again, YouTube demonetized my channel because I'm not allowed to say naughty things about Israel. You know, telling the truth is forbidden. So if you are able to donate a few dollars on PayPal or on a monthly basis on Patreon, please consider doing it, because it would really help me continue my journalism and support independent media. So I'd be very grateful. And the links are in the description and also in the chat. Thank you guys very much again for all your donations and all your kind comments. I appreciate it very much.